There is a battle going on for the control of the sale of fast-moving consumer goods in South Africa. Companies are involved, politicians are involved, and there have been serious accusations that have been made within communities about children and how children are dying. Today, we're going to dissect this topic and try to get to the bottom of what is going on and why. Fast-moving consumer goods are products that sell quickly at relatively low cost. Fast-moving consumer goods have a short shelf life because of the high consumer demand. For example, soft drinks, chips, all of these things fall into this fast-moving consumer goods. And typically, you buy them in supermarkets or in Spaza Shops. The whole food and grocery sector comprises a modern formal sector and a large informal sector. According to Pick n Pay's 2023 Integrated Annual Report, the total market had an estimated value of 1 trillion rand in 2023, and that value is likely to continue going up. But 1 trillion rand was the estimation of the value in 2023. That's a lot of money. That's a big market. That's a sizable market. According to the Pick n Pay Integrated Annual Report, the four large retailers, Pick n Pay, Shoprite, Spar, and Woolworths, accounted for 60% of formal sales in the grocery retail market. 60% of this market is considered formal, and 40% of the market is considered informal. A 2016 report by Consumer Behavior Monitor Nielsen, South Africa, found that the informal or independent retail sector had 46 billion rands in annual sales, with more than 9 million households shopping in traditional trade stores. According to the Nielsen report, traditional trade stores are brick and mortar outlets with a fixed location, and that excludes hawkers and people with tabletops. And these shops are informal and independently owned. So basically, that's the Spaza Shop space. And then estimated 150,000 Spaza Shops across South Africa. They also have, controversially, a large proportion of foreign nationals who work with them, who are sometimes referred to as Abo my friend. Right, so more analysis or information on the sector. Trade Intelligence, which is a research outlet that looks into this, valued the informal grocery sector, which includes Spaza Shops and mobile traders, at 184 billion. Its research indicated that if you include mobile traders, hawkers, the market has 11.1 million customers who are doing their shopping at these particular outlets or entities, citing convenience and low prices. McKenzie, the consulting firm, released a report which is called Turning a Corner, the State of Grocery Retail 2024. And they released a South Africa edition of that particular report. According to McKenzie, before I talk about what they said, they surveyed in their research more than 1,000 consumers, spoke to several grocery executives in South Africa to get their perspectives on key challenges and priorities facing the sector. According to McKenzie, shoppers intend to continue prioritizing value and affordability in 2024. This is because the cost of living is still high and shoppers have to make a plan and to extend their rand. So, according to McKenzie, the average monthly cost of household food baskets exceeded 5,000 rands in April of 2023 and grew further by 6% to 5,300 rands in April of 2024, while household disposable income grew only by 4 to 5% over the same period. So you can see that the cost of household food is exorbitant, but the income has not grown significantly. And by the way, even this estimate of 5,336, many South Africans cannot afford this, and many South Africans live on significantly less than 5,336 in terms of the household goods that they buy. According to McKenzie, as a result of this increase in average monthly cost of household food baskets, and also the not comparable increase in household disposable income, many shoppers will continue to look for value. In 2024, 76% of consumers said they were more likely to buy products on promotion, while 63% have recently switched to store-owned brands to stretch their budget. So you can see from this data that cost-conscious consumer behavior is going to continue. And what McKinsey says is that cost-conscious consumer behavior combined with low market penetration relative to global levels suggests that the growth of discount supermarkets will continue into the foreseeable future. According to the McKenzie Report, there are two strategic recommendations for South Africa for growth, which I want to highlight. Strategy number one is to expand the size of discount grocery stores. According to McKinsey, South Africa's discount retailers are growing twice as fast as the total market. Pick n Pay's Boxer and Shoprite's Usave grew at a combined annual growth rate of 12% between 2019 and 2023, compared with 6% combined annual growth rate for the market as a whole. So that's double. Boxer reported close to 20% sales growth for the second half of its financial year to the end of February 2024. According to McKinsey, at just under 9% of market share in 2023, the discount segment in South Africa is about 2/3 the size of that in countries such as the Netherlands and the United Kingdom, where market penetration is about 15% of these types of stores. Furthermore, McKinsey research shows that even in these markets, discounters continue to do well, gaining close to 1% market share on average in 2023 in Europe. So this approach is the game that is being chased by big retail in South Africa. This is the game that big retail is pursuing. Pick n Pay has a strategy that they call Ekuseni. Pick n Pay had a turnover of 103 billion from its South Africa segment in the financial year of 2023. Pick n Pay Supermarkets division in South Africa generated 71.4 billion of that amount. Pick n Pay has estimated that it has almost 10% share of the total market and about 15% of the formal market, right? Meaning that it has smaller share of the informal market, but overall it has 15% share. Boxer Supermarket is a part of the Pick n Pay brand. It operates as Pick n Pay's budget brand. Boxer was acquired by Pick n Pay in 2002. Boxer right now represents 31% of the group's turnover, so it's overperforming. According to Pick n Pay, Boxer's return on investment capital exceeded 20% in the financial year of 2023, well ahead of the return of its listed food retail peers, where the return on invested capital measures tended to range from 9% to 13%. Boxer generated 31 billion rands worth of sales in South Africa in the year 2023, with market-leading growth of 20%. This is according to Pick n Pay's own reports. Furthermore, at just 279 supermarkets, Boxer is significantly underrepresented against its peers and its long-term potential. The Ekuseni strategy aims to double Boxer's sale and store footprint between the years of 2022 and 2026, which will still not realize Boxer's full opportunity. To achieve, according to the report, the goal of doubling sales, the group has increased how much it's allocating to Boxer and allocated in 2023 1.3 billion and opened 60 new stores. Boxer plans to open 75 new stores in 2024, which will equate to an 18% year-on-year expansion of the estate. According to Pick n Pay, Boxer's compelling customer value proposition, discounter format, and low-cost operating model provide it with sustainable competitive advantage within its market segment. Recently, Pick n Pay has announced plans to list the Boxer brand, indicating that it is of strategic importance to the group's overall performance amid the financial challenges that are being faced by Pick n Pay itself. This move aims to leverage Boxer's success and growth potential while addressing liquidity issues within the parent company. So that deals with Pick n Pay. They are going for that segment. They are going for it, and they're going in hard. They're committed. Boxer is it's not their cash cow yet, but it's their star. If you have done business strategy, you know of the BCG matrix, where businesses are divided into 4 segments, right? Cash cow, star, question mark, and dog. So cash cow is where you make the bulk of your money. That is still in the traditional retail supermarket space for Pick n Pay. But their rising star is definitely Boxer, and they want to leverage that. Shoprite is also pursuing the strategy that McKenzie has spoken about with USave Ekasi. Right now, Shoprite is the largest and most profitable food retailer on the African continent, and it increased its sales in 2024 by 12% to 240 billion. The group's total income increased by 12.1% to 63 billion, resulting in a total income margin of 26.4%. The Shoprite Group's core business, Supermarket South Africa, makes up 81% of sales from continuing operations and is represented by 2,322 stores across major trading banners: Shoprite, UServe, Checkers, Checkers Hyper, Liquor Shop, and other adjacent brands. Shoprite has announced that it's moving rapidly into the discount space with its USave offering. The USave chain was launched in the early 2000s and trades in lower income segments than the company's main Shoprite brand and is specifically geared towards the township market. In an investment note about this USave entity, Nedbank said these early moves into the market have put Shoprite in a strong position to continue growing its market share in this sector. What Nedbank said is the following: the group's low cost, no frills, limited assortment discounter USave caters to the low income segment of the market, with stores largely located in underserved communities. Shoprite has expanded its USave offering, with USave Ekasi offering in recent years to expand and quicken its pace of expansion and to improve its ability to compete in price with local Spaza Shops. According to the Shoprite 2024 Integrated Annual Report, USave South Africa increased sales by 13.2% year on year, and it has a long-term target of having 1,000 stores within 5 years. This is Shoprite. 1,000 stores within 5 years. Right now, in 2024, the financial year of 2024, Shoprite ended that year with 463 USave stores, and 44 of them were USave Kasi container store formats. Basically, they are Spaza Shops that are owned by Shoprite. USave does not just offer goods, but it also offers money market services, bringing customers services which allow them to purchase airtime, data, to receive social grant payments, pensions, as well as doing money transfers and bill payments. 1,000 stores in the next 5 years. 1,000 stores. The chain is planning to add 36 stores in the 2025 financial year. So they're saying 1,000, but they're going a little bit slowly. So that's strategy 1 that has been recommended by McKenzie. Strategy 2 is the e-business to business, to use the Spaza market in and of itself as a source of growth. According to McKenzie, there are untapped opportunities for large retailers to develop competitive business-to-business platforms to support the Spaza market in and of itself. The McKenzie second proposal is based on a premise that you may not be able necessarily to outcompete Spaza Shops or to remove them entirely. There's a recognition that these Spaza Shops have held 30 to 40% of the market share for decades. And the reason they've been able to do this is because of their resilience, innovation, proximity, and the way that they've been able to also have an understanding of the wholesale sector and the networks, which have evolved to support smaller traders. Additionally, smaller traders, the Spaza Shops, have a compelling value proposition that includes proximity, credit, free delivery, which is hard for modern retailers to compete with. More than 80% of Spaza shoppers say they shop there because the establishments are close to where they live, and 30% say it's because their prices are generally lower. Right? I went to a few Spaza shops just doing research for this episode, and I did notice that some of the brands that were in there, the chips, the soaps, the noodles, were not the type of brands that you'll typically find in big retail. Big retail is dominated by Simba, by Willard's, by those type of big brands, not necessarily some of these other brands. But interesting enough, before I never used to see Indomie noodles in the shops. Now I see Indomie noodles at Pick and Pay, and Indomie noodles are popular in Nigeria. I've never had them. I bought them, but I've never had them. And I've seen them in the Nigerian movies, so I'm going to try them out. I'll let you know how they tasted. But I saw Indomie noodles in Pick and Pay, and I also saw Indomie noodles in the Spaza Shops. I went to two. And I also just saw some random noodle brands, lots of random noodle brands there, right? I can show you. Let me show you the whole from the shops, the Spaza Shops. So here are some of the products I got. You've got these chips, Doritos, knickknacks, Lay's. These, you all find them in a typical supermarket, the big ones, Pick and Pay, Shoprite, you name it. Then you got these other strange ones here. These are called lightning puffed corn. These were like 4 rands or something like that. Lightning puffed corn. These I got from the Spaza Shop. Then from the Spaza Shop, also got Indomie noodles. These are the Indomie noodles. Then I got some, what do they call them? Fast move noodles. Fast move noodles on the go. Never heard of this brand. Fast move noodles. And then just a soap that I thought would illustrate the point. This soap is called Sona Beauty Soap. This was the most expensive thing I actually bought in the Spaza Shop for 14 rands. Yeah? So, and then I went to the supermarket, bought some chips, etc. Chips, because a lot of the accusations have centered around chips. So I wanted to get them, see what the big deal was. Repackaged chips in particular. Right. So Spaza Shops are able to be innovative. Spaza Shops are able to provide cheaper products. That much is true. According to McKenzie, though, that still allows for an opportunity. According to McKenzie, the rapid advance of technology and digital channels has opened new avenues for trade that benefit both Spaza traders and modern retailers. By leveraging their established supplier relationships, modern retailers can evolve their core business to customer models and develop e-business to business platforms that create new revenue streams while adding significant value to the Spaza market. For example, in 2024, Shoprite launched an e-business to business platform under its Cash and Carry brand, which is similar to AB InBev's BEEs. The platforms can improve supply chain efficiencies and reduce risks and costs by providing better access to a broader range of products so that smaller retailers don't have to store excess stock, and these efficiencies ultimately flow through to consumers. So this is the second strategy that has been suggested as a way of getting into that township economy for these big retailers. There's something that is interesting that I bumped into looking into the Spaza Shop industry, an example of what McKenzie is talking about with this B2B model. There has been some professionalization and franchising that has happened. And there's this particular case study that is known as the A2 Pay chain of Spaza Shops. And this chain of Spaza Shop features predominantly in the KwaZulu-Natal province. For instance, over 400 of the A2 Pay Spaza Shops are in Wamashu. right? A2Pay has got a network of more than 6,000 independent retailers. And A2Pay transacts over 2 billion rands annually and provides them with a point of sale system with stock management, barcoding, stock on hand reports, low stock alerts, ordering, payments to suppliers, sales reports, gross profit, top sellers, expenses, and net profit. A2Pay's merchant networks gives the fast-moving consumer goods suppliers access to a network and the capacity to influence where those merchants are purchasing from and what they are buying. So what A2Pay does is that it tracks both merchant purchases and consumer sales, giving them a real return on investment with insight, accurate data on scanning, market share analysis, purchasing patterns, basket composition insights, average pricing comparisons, competitor analysis, and value and unit contribution, which helps the suppliers to take control of their route to market and to obtain essential market intelligence for strategizing. So this is what their value proposition is, and this is what they're saying. Some of this is from their website, so you can hear it's like more flowery. But clearly, A2Pay is already doing what McKenzie has suggested, and AB InBev has done this as well globally, using software as a service to provide business-to-business platforms to allow for people who are selling alcohol to be able to do similar things with their shops, their small bottle stores, pubs, clubs, etc., where they can use an app to order, manage stock, etc., and get data, use AI even to get strategic insights around what products to sell or not to sell. So that's what's happening, and this is part of the fight for the township economy, right? The most interesting thing about A2Pay for me, though, was its connections to the political world. So firstly, A2Pay is backed by the South African SME Fund. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because the South African SME Fund was created by the CEO initiative. You know, those CEOs who went under to sleep on Mandela Bridge and all of that. That's the same initiative which became Business Unity South Africa. The same CEOs who are pledging 250 million to President Cyril Ramaphosa's Project Management Office for privatization projects. That's the same group. That's the same group. So the CEO of the fund is Ketso Godan, who is the nephew of Pravin Gordhan, who, if you remember, told us to connect the dots to understand state capture. So we are connecting dots. May his soul rest in peace. The chairman of the board of this SME fund is Adrian Gore, the CEO of Discovery and the vice president of Business Unity South Africa. Now, the chairman of the investment committee is Michael Jordan, the former CEO of FNB. So it's a very small world. And some of these people, they are showing up on all sides of the equation. You know, they're showing up in all sides of the equation in a way that Jackie Chan's hands show up in Drunken Master, all sides of the equation. Same names. There's something that is interesting about that. So, looking at the two strategies, looking at what I've discussed so far in the first part of this dissection, which outcome is more likely in the coming 5 years? It seems to me that the pendulum has shifted and is shifting in favor of the two big supermarket chains competing in this space. Why do I say that? Because new laws have been gazetted by the Minister of Cooperative Governance. The Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs is the ministry of the South African government which is responsible for the relationship between national government and the provincial governments and municipalities, and is responsible for overseeing as well the traditional leadership of South Africa's indigenous communities. Right? So the COGTA ministry consists of the Department of Cooperative Governance and the Department of Traditional Affairs. The Municipal Demarcation Board, the South African Local Government Association, and the South African Cities Networks are all entities that report to the Cooperative Governance Minister. So it's a significant ministry, and it's the ministry that has made a move which I submit to you is going to assist the Pick and Pays and the Shoprites to take over the Spaza Shops space, right? On Thursday, a very significant bylaw was gazetted. When a law is gazetted, it basically means that the law has been officially published in a government gazette, which serves as a formal notification to the public. This process is crucial for the law to take effect and become binding. So what was gazetted? The law that was gazetted is the Local Government Draft Bylaw for Township Economies under the Municipal Systems Act of 2000. Right? I'm going to refer to it as the Spaza Shops bylaw moving forward. And I think that this Spaza Shop bylaw is going to lead to a reduction in the number of Spaza shops in townships, and that is going to pave way for Shoprite and Pick n Pay to take over the discount supermarket retail space. Section 1 of this law deals with definitions, and it has an interesting thing that I want to point out and show you how they're going to do it. Authorized official means an employee of the municipality who is duly responsible for carrying out any duty or function or exercising any power in terms of this standard draft bylaw, and includes a law enforcement officer declared to be a peace officer in terms of section 3341A of the Criminal Procedure Act of 1977. Think about that. A law enforcement officer declared to be a peace officer in terms of section 3341A of the Criminal Procedure Act of 1977. Who's been recently given peace officer status? It seems very likely that this enforcement will be carried out by the crime prevention wardens. The crime prevention wardens were launched on the 28th of April 2023. They became known as Amapanyaza. The first cohort started their job on the 1st of May 2023 and consisted of 3,200 wardens. The wardens were meant to focus on 360 wards in the township and informal settlement areas, and that this would later expand to other areas of Gauteng. The Amapanyaza, or the crime prevention wardens, were granted peace officer status in December of 2023. Are you beginning to see I think I'm seeing something to that effect. It seems to me that there is a coordinated move between politicians and the big supermarkets to go after that 200 billion sector. It's being done in the name of helping the communities, but the question is, will it really? We're going to address that. So we've done some definitions. Then there's a second definition which is important: illegal goods. 3 definitions are given of illegal goods. A, goods which may not have been lawfully acquired or disposed of. B, goods that are prohibited from sale or distribution under any applicable national, provincial, or municipal law. Now, this one could include repackaged chips, right? Because those chips are the ones which have been blamed for a lot of things. So you can be actually found selling repackaged chips, and then boom, they take away the Spaza shop. Think about it. And then finally, counterfeit goods as defined in the Counterfeit Goods Act of 1997. This could include the type of goods which are bought from China Mall, knockoff products. When I was looking and buying all of these, noodles and chips and all of that, I did notice that there were some Crocs that were not Crocs, right? So lots of, replicas were in the Spaza shop, if I'm being polite. But I saw that, and these replicas would then be considered to be illegal goods. Okay? So I think very few people have problems with the question of goods which may not have been lawfully acquired or disposed of. Maybe you buy cans from a supermarket that wanted to throw them away because they are expiring, and then you package them and you put them in your shop. Those are not properly disposed of goods. They should have been disposed of. But the ones which seem as if they are going even further are the ones around repackaged goods and maybe even these knockoff products. What are the objectives of this bylaw, the Spaza Shop bylaw? According to the bylaw, the objective of this bylaw is to A, facilitate inclusive spatial and economic development in township. B, harmonize the township ecosystem and provide norms and standards for the establishment and management of township-based enterprises, both formal and informal. C, to raise awareness of applicable laws and regulations affecting township businesses. And D, to support small businesses to grow and participate in the mainstream economic activities. I'm not sure it's going to achieve D, and I'll tell you why later. So, business activities, Section 3.5 speaks on this, and this is when you begin to see what the bylaw is going to do. A person may not carry on a business activity within the area of jurisdiction of a municipality unless that person is a holder of a business permit issued or transferred to him or her by the municipality. That's number one. Prohibitions and restrictions. These are in Section 9. Except in cases where prior approval has been granted by the municipality, a person may not carry out a business activity, A, in a garden or park to which the public has a right of access, B, on a verge adjacent to a building belonging to or occupied by an organ of state, a church, mosque, synagogue, or other formally registered place of worship, a building belonging or occupied by the municipality, a building declared to be a public monument, next to an ATM machine, at a place where it causes obstruction in front of a fire hydrant or entrance to or exit from a building, where it causes obstruction to vehicular traffic or it substantially obstructs pedestrians in their use of a sidewalk, on a verge adjacent to a building in which business is conducted by a person who sells goods of the same nature as or of a similar nature to goods being sold by the seller concerned. So you can't sell outside a shop. Can't sell also on half of a public road adjacent to a building used for residential purposes if the owner or person in control of the building objects thereto. All right, so it's hard now for you to be selling on the street, hard for you to be selling, in the places where some of these people are selling stuff. Right. It says this: a person carrying on a business may not sleep overnight at the place of such business, except in a case where prior approval has been granted by the municipality or where the business is operating from residential units or structures. May not place his or her property on a public road, except in cases where prior approval has been granted by the municipality. May not construct a permanent structure on a public road or public place other than a shed, shack, Wendy house, or poles implanted into the ground and other infrastructural arrangements common in the street trading environment. May not buy goods from an establishment that does not comply with relevant regulatory prescripts. May not sell expired items. Must ensure that his or her property or area of activity does not cover an area of public road or public place which is greater than 6 square meters, unless otherwise approved by the municipality, and in respect of a sidewalk, leaves an unobstructed space for pedestrian traffic, being not less than 1.5 meters wide when measured for any contiguous building to the property area of activity, and not less than 1.5 meter wide when measured from the curb line to the property area of activity. May not conduct business on a sidewalk where the width of such a sidewalk is less than 1 meter. May not place or stack his or her goods in such a manner that goods are likely to injure a person or cause damage to property. May not sell, distribute, or store illegal goods or goods that do not comply with acceptable standards. You hear that one? Remember what I told you about the definition of illegal goods. So you may not store repackaged chips, for instance, or store or sell products that are bought from China Mall. So that's going to be where the business hits where the rubber hits the road. May not carry on business in such a manner as to create a nuisance, create a traffic, health hazard, or health risk, obstruct access to or use of street furniture or any other facility designed for use by the general public. Must maintain records of the identification of his or her suppliers and be able to provide proof of the legitimate sourcing of goods upon request by an authorized official. Part of this is also to deal with the cigarette issue, right? Because the cigarette issue is a big fight, and Rupert has been complaining about the cigarette issue because there are other smaller brands that have penetrated the market. As things stand, British American Tobacco controls 90-something% of the market. They have a monopoly, but they don't want to even share with the smaller tobacco producers. And Rupert is the owner of British American Tobacco. He sold a large part of it, still the owner of it, because if you recall, that is one of the entities that built his father, Anton Rupert, the wealth. It was the cigarettes and the alcohol. So they still have shares in those businesses. So when you look at some of these things holistically, you begin to see, okay, I'm seeing how these things are connected. Right, last one that is not allowed. May not knowingly purchase goods from suppliers engaged in the trade of illegal goods. Section 7 deals with the registration and permitting of business activities. A registered business must be issued, this is 7.7, with a registration card or permit that must be displayed and be available for inspection at all times. So this is going to create that liquor license type of status. And then 7.8, the responsible official must put in place a complaint system that can be used by residents and community members to report and receive feedback regarding their complaints or concerns and appeal process. Offenses and penalties. A person who fails to comply with a lawful instruction given in terms of this bylaw, or a person who obstructs or hinders an authorized official in the execution of his or her duties under this bylaw, is guilty of an offense and must be served with a written warning advising of the offense, the remedial action, and applicable times, consequences for failure to redress, and the appeal process. Despite the provisions in Section 12.1, a person found to be transgressing any provisions of this bylaw must, on a first transgression, be served with a written warning notice informing the person of the transgression and that his or her business license may be cancelled immediately if he or she does not remedy the transaction within a reasonable time based on industry and sector trends, and B, on a subsequent transgression, be served with a written notice informing the person of the transgression and that, subject to an appeal process, his or her business license is immediately cancelled and that he or she will be barred from reapplying for a license in any municipality for a period of 5 years after the subsequent transgression. During the process of an appeal, the application is deemed to have been unsuccessful. So, in a short space of time, a lot of Spaza shops are going to lose their licenses and those owners are going to be prohibited from operating for 5 years. This bylaw also allows municipalities to put in quotas around how these Spaza shops should be owned. So if they say we want 5% foreign ownership, that can be a number that they deem and it will be legal. The significance of this bylaw, even though it says that it's there to encourage Spaza shops and to help them to exist, is that it will be harder for Spaza shops owners to keep these businesses running. They will not get a lot of sympathy from the public because a narrative has already been created that the chips that they sell are killing children. The toxicology reports have proved that the cause of death of the children has been due to organophosphate poisoning and not the consumption of the chips. The experts have pointed out that organophosphates are widely used in townships and informal settlements for pest control. Due to poor municipal waste management, rodents such as rats have proliferated and created an incentive for people to buy these organophosphates. But the organophosphates have not been found in food sold by the Spaza shops. These are not my remarks. They are the remarks of the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, and the Director of Environmental Health in Ekhuruleni, Dr. Jerry Chaga. And here's what they said.
TERBUFOS, Tebufos. All the 6 children died of Tebufos ingestion. In the past weeks, several chemicals were bandied around as possible causes of death. Some were even found in some retailers. In order to avoid confusion, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to mention each one of these chemicals and explain their significance. But before I do that, I need to explain that apart from organophosphate, another group of chemicals used as pesticides are called carbamates. There's a slight difference between carbamates and organophosphate. As I said, they are both used as pesticides. But one major difference is that organophosphate is much more lethal and can cause irreversible damage. Sometimes last week, there was a statement that indicated carbamates as the cause of death. This was from post-mortem observations, just observations. But toxicology has proven that the actual cause of death is organophosphate and not carbamate, as it might have been initially thought. On Friday, the 25th of October, 2024, we had informed you that 4 people were arrested at the Johannesburg Mall because they were found trading in a chemical called Aldicap. 1,450 grams of this chemical was confiscated by police. Now, what led to the arrest of these 4 people was that during the operations in Naledi, some of the Spaza shop owners confessed that these 4 are the people, these people in the mall, in the Johannesburg Mall, are the people who are selling them illegal chemicals. That's why part of the team went there, and in fact, they found this Aldicap. Aldicap falls in the class of, it's one of the carbamates. I've mentioned that we have got organophosphate and carbamates, and organophosphate were responsible for the death, but Aldicap was found being sold. It is a carbamate, as we have already stated. It is not the cause of death in these particular cases. If it has caused death before, we are not yet aware of that, but it wasn't. But still, it remains illegal to be sold to the public because it is also a dangerous substance. At the present moment, samples that were taken via swabs in the various Spaza shops in Soweto have been sent to the National Health Laboratory Services, and we are still waiting for the results. This means that while organophosphate was found in the bodies of these children, we are still waiting to see if the organophosphate was also found in the Spaza shops so that we can scientifically link the events. It is also important to mention that police did find a packet of chips in the pocket of one of the children who demised. This was also sent for analysis, and the results were out, and they were found to be negative. That means this substance, organophosphate, which killed the children, was not able to be detected on the packet of chips that was found in the pockets of one of the children. Now, let's try to analyze the present situation that we are faced with. When we mentioned that we are sending teams to search for signs of chemicals in these Spaza shops, some people on social media were very skeptical because they reasoned, and I think as ordinary people it's understandable, they reasoned that if indeed there are chemicals in the Spaza shops that affected and even killed some of these children, why would Spaza shop owners not equally be affected? Because they should also be exposed to the same substance. It is very important to explain this. It is known medically that children are more susceptible to pesticide toxicity and other environmental toxicants than adults. This is due to several factors which are mostly physiological. The first one is body mass. Children have a smaller body mass than adults, and therefore, a given dose of pesticides can have more severe impact on a child because of the smaller body size. Number 2, developing organs. Children's organs are still developing, making them more vulnerable to the effects of pesticides because they are not able to They are not able to handle them. Excuse me. Number 3 is the route of exposure. Children are affected by acute pesticide poisoning and chronic effects of exposure through ingestion, inhalation, and dermal contact. You're also aware of behavioral patterns of children. I'm sorry, before even coming to the root. The behavioral pattern of children is different from adults. We all know we have got children. One of their well-known behaviors is hand to mouth and hand to object. Adults don't usually do that. Children do that quite often whenever they've touched things, and this exposes them more than adults. And as I said, the route of exposure can be ingestion, inhalation, or dermal contact. That organophosphate can even enter your body through contact with your skin, and hence can affect you even from contaminated clothing. In other words, this organophosphate doesn't have to be in your mouth or inhalation to affect you. It can even go directly through your skin if you are in contact with it. So which means contaminated clothing can also affect people. But it has been reported by the World Health Organization that in children, the most commonest route is ingestion of this organophosphate.
Certainly, as it relates to food poisoning, the story that is going around that food poisoning, Spaza Shops, etc. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Yeah. In terms of all our investigations in the city around the death that happened, we found out that it's organophosphate. In one instance, in Vosloorus, the family prepared and consumed sandwiches, and there were 2 children that died of that after consuming that. And over and above the sandwiches, they also consumed chips, which are Simba chips, and we tested both. And the positive traces of organophosphate was found in the home-prepared sandwich. And as relates to the chips that were bought elsewhere, those were found to be negative in terms of any trace of food poisoning. So the problem that we're picking up is mainly from organophosphate, the aldicarb, commonly known as aldicarb, and in all the instances, like in Tsakani, there was also an incident where we had to test biscuits, and they also were found to be negative. But tracing this matter further, we found out that there were fruit and vegetables that were stored by a neighbor who's selling this. And where he's storing this, he's also using this aldicarb, and the contamination should have happened due to that. And that's why we had this case of aldicarb.
So I hope it's clear by now that as things stand, there is no scientific corroboration of the narrative that the chips that were sold by Spaza Shops are the cause of the death of the children in Soweto. Now, there was an interesting article that I found when I was doing my research from 2020. In 2020, Daily Maverick reported on the proposed regulation at the time of Spaza Shops, and they spoke to a Spaza Shop owner in KZN. Pilani Masinga, according to the report, is a shopkeeper in Guamashu, in rural KwaZulu-Natal. He owns 2 Spaza Shops in the area and employs 6 people from the local neighborhood to help out at his storefronts. Masinga belongs to a Stockville society of 8 members who own 12 Spaza Shops among them and employ more than 12 people in the surrounding area. But he said to Daily Maverick that they are being forced out of business by local government, who insist they should have business permits to operate in residential areas. Yet nobody has come out to help us to apply for them or to assist in other compliance measures, he said. We can't even get the state to issue us the title deeds to our own homes where we started our businesses in the first place. He said that government is an oppressor rather than enabler. He said, we don't need more bylaws. We need assistance with complying with what is already in place and be afforded a fair chance to participate in the economy. We can't compete with the large shopping malls popping up all around us who can afford fancy lawyers or with foreign networks who are illegally setting up shops in our territories. He says it's impossible for them to assess the superpower supply chains without the proper paperwork or professional or political connections. Local merchants said that they have no bargaining power in their own backyard, yet they are business owners who employ residents and invest profits back into the community. Masingo said, we also live here and we need to support our households. Closing the shop is not the only cost at play here. He said, we've been trying too long to survive in isolation without access to bulk discounts available to big retailers and the foreign nationals. And we have to operate in an overregulated market that offers no protection, support, or infrastructure. So Masinga makes interesting points here. He says they're struggling to compete with my friend. They're also struggling to compete with big retail. We've already discussed how big retail is going to move in. In Naledi, according to the Sowetan, there were 84 Spaza shops in that area. When the kids died, they went through all the Spaza shops, searched them, etc. 42 of those shops were locally owned, and 42 of those shops were owned by my friend, Pakistanis, foreign-owned shops. So if you look at that, and then you expand that across the 150,000 Spaza shops that exist, you'll find that if these stores get closed, it will affect lots of South Africans because some of the people operating the Spaza shops in the townships are renting from South Africans. And some people who are renting these shops out to my friend are doing so because they cannot afford to work in the Spaza shop and live. So they use the Spaza shop as a secondary source of income. The reason why my friend can afford to live in those, to make those shops work is because they live in those shops. They do sleep over. Now that will be illegal. They use networks because they pull money and they buy things together. So that allows them to be able to, sell goods at a bit of a cheaper cost. And also they buy these random products, and they sell them. Abo Fast Move, sweet chili noodles. I have no idea where these come from. Now I've got a green screen here, so my knickknacks may not show properly, but knickknacks, you won't find as many of them in the shops. What you will find is these ones, lightning and other forms of, you'll find these types of soaps. So these products that I just showed could be classified as illegal goods. They could be classified as illegal goods. My friend are selling Crocs and all of these things, which are not authentic products. They are coming from China. People buy them at the China malls, lots of China malls across the country. So this is how they make this business work. The margins are very small. And because my friend are coming from difficult conditions, they are happy to make those sacrifices because sometimes it's better than what they were living under. If you've seen the conditions in Pakistan, you've seen those living conditions, they're bad, they're horrible. And so for them, this, even though it's dangerous, even though it's low margins, could be better. So if you introduce all of these regulations, all that you do is you increase the cost of running a Spaza shop to the point where it may no longer be viable. And you may make it so difficult for people to comply. And we know, or we can see that peace officers, the wardens will be the ones enforcing this. So what's likely to happen is many Spaza shops will close down. Now, going back to the beginning, Pick n Pay wants to go into the townships. They have a strategic plan called Ekuseni. Shoprite wants to go into the townships and build 1,000 You Save Ekasi stores in the next 5 years. 1,000. You can't expand a business without eliminating competition. And their competition, which has been holding on to 30 to 40% of the market share, has been the Spaza Shops. So it seems to me that finally competition will be eliminated to the benefit of Boxer, which is owned by Pick n Pay, to the benefit of You Save Ekasi, which is owned by Shoprite. These are companies that trace back to Stellenbosch. Companies that trace back to Stellenbosch. Now, if you have watched any of my content, you know that I am what I consider to be a fair market capitalist. A fair market capitalist. There are people who say they are free market capitalists in South Africa, but they don't support fair markets. In order for a market to be fair, there has to be competition. Competition is what leads to innovation. Competition is what leads to good pricing for customers. The lack of competition, which looks like monopoly or oligopoly, leads to overcharging of consumers, leads to lack of choice for consumers. One of the things that people have been pointing out is that the price of fuel went down, but the cost of food remained high. In South Africa, the cost of food never comes down, ever. It just goes up and up and up because the supermarket chains are an oligopoly. They're an oligopoly. There's a book, I speak about this book very often, by James Robinson and Darren Acemoglu. These are two economics professors who won a Nobel Prize for their literature, their books. This book speaks about what is the incubator for poverty, low growth, and high unemployment. Extractive economies. Extractive economies are economies where you have a few entities extracting income, wealth from the large group. And they are typified by monopolies and oligopolies. So now it seems as if there is going to be an oligopoly in the township space. You will either be able to buy your knickknacks from Boxer or buy your knickknacks from You Save Ekasi. And if you look at these products that are stocked in the supermarkets, there's a monopoly. Simba chips basically dominate all of the chips. Lay's, Doritos, knickknacks, it's all Simba chips. You look at the sweets, it's Beacon, it's a few companies. So this concentration of a few brands, a few supermarkets is not good for the economy. It does not create employment in the numbers that it needs to, because what will happen is that these 2 million people or so who are employed in the Spaza shop space, they will reduce as the Spaza shops get closed down, and they won't be able to get work in the Shoprites and Pick n Pays because, one, those entities are not really interested in hiring lots of people. Two, they have high requirements to hire people. So those people who don't have the necessary education levels to even become a teller won't be able to get into those supermarkets even as they expand. So this will not necessarily solve the unemployment problem. It may actually exacerbate the unemployment problem. And it will take the money that has been circulating in the township out of the townships to Stellenbosch. Guess who is excited by these developments? The Johannesburg Stock Exchange. I've read so many research articles from investors advising each other which shares to buy. Buy Pick n Pay, buy Shoprite, buy Pick n Pay, buy Shoprite, buy Pick n Pay, buy Shoprite. They're the ones who are going to get the dividend from the success of Shoprite and the success of Pick n Pay. Not the people living in Ekasi. It's not going to be them. The people living in Ekasi will see less and less affordable options. More and more no-name brands will show up because that's the game plan. That's how these guys are planning to make things affordable. Just give you no-name brand, Pick n Pay, no-name brand, You Save, no-name brands, etc. But you won't be able to get all of these other brands that are being sold right now in the townships. I'm not sure that's good or healthy or progressive? I'm not sure. I'm not persuaded that it is. But it looks to me that with the developments of last week and the reporting around this, the end of the Spaza shop industry is around the corner. What do you guys think? Let's have a conversation in the comments. Till the next one.